Hello, and welcome to our video guide for possibly the strongest build in the dawn of the Hunt League. This build utilizes several powerful interactions between items and skills to achieve overwhelming effects. The bleed damage is an essential part of it, but you will also have a lot of upfront damage from your hits, both for the general clear speed and finishing up bosses with style. The skill with which you'll bleed out bosses is RAKE, as it simply has the best damage modifiers for bleed. The interesting part, and the true killer, is the Blood Hunt skill. It consumes all damage suffered by the enemy so far from bleeding and adds a portion of it to the explosion. This damage is not affected by regular modifiers, but it can critically hit and will be affected by your critical damage bonus accordingly. The essential item for this build is the Tangletongue unique spear. It has low base damage but an insanely high critical strike chance. On top of that, your critical hits can double their critical damage bonus. It will scale both your initial bleed damage and the explosion from the Blood Hunt. The Blood Mage is the remedy for the low base damage of your weapon, as with the Blood Barbs notable, your elemental damage will count towards the bleed too. Currently, adding extra elemental damage to your attacks is much more efficient than adding physical damage. It also automatically aggravates your bleeds, so you don't have to waste your investments on that aspect elsewhere. For clearing hordes of enemies you can use any skill, but the Lightning Spear is the obvious best choice in that category. For bosses you should use Infernal Cry to generate rage and empower your next attack, and use Rake at maximum distance. After a few seconds, finish with the Blood Hunt once your opponent accumulates enough blood loss. The main defense of this build is your maximum life. As the Blood Mage you can overflow it for double the amount, and part of the incoming damage will be taken over 4 seconds instead. It is quite easy to include a bit of energy shield and evasion, but it is rarely necessary. You will have enough upfront damage to kill most enemies without waiting for the bleed. The Lightning Spear has the best area coverage in the game currently. The damage against bosses is simply absurd. The Blood Hunt explosions usually skip the more dangerous elements of boss fights. The build has very efficient scaling, so you only need the Tangletongue Spear and very basic rare items to start. There is a lot of room for improvements later on, especially in the defensive department. The Tangletongue is mandatory unique as it allows you to easily reach 100% critical strike chance and scale critical damage bonus to insane levels. The Crown of Eyes and Threaded Light combo covers the lack of increases to your damage on the passive tree, but the build works quite well without it too. This spear can reach up to 25% base critical hit chance. It is the most important role you should look for here. With the Forking critical hits modifier, it can add all your critical damage bonus a second time. For Corruption, you can try to get rage on hit or extra critical damage bonus. Your passive tree focuses entirely on critical hits and ailments, so you will barely have any increases to your damage. This helmet will greatly help with that, especially with the help of another unique focus. Keep in mind it only applies to pure spell damage increases. Benefits for non-channeling spells or similar do not work here. Threaded Light grants you a massive amount of spell damage, further converted into attack damage. Try to corrupt it to get even more spell damage per spirit, or at least get another socket to help with covering your resistance. You will have lots of opportunities to scale your damage via your gear. The most important is to get a lot of flat damage on your rings and gloves. You will also want spirit, critical damage bonus, and extra gem levels. You also can't forget to cap your resistance and attributes requirements. Your main defense is maximum life. You should get as much of it as possible for your budget. Once you cover all the necessities, you should sprinkle a bit of item rarity as well. If getting the unique helmet is out of your budget, you will have to use a purely defensive shield, as you won't need spell damage modifiers on your gear, and there is no cheaper alternative to get damage. It should grant you a decent amount of maximum life and block chance, but also tons of elemental or chaos resistance, so you can get more offensive modifiers on your remaining gear pieces. Your rings have to cover the lack of flat damage on your weapon. It can be any type of damage except for chaos, as long as there is a lot of it. However, the lightning damage has the highest damage potential and allows for shock. You can even skip the life modifiers here and use attack catalysts to get more damage. A rare amulet is also abundant in great modifiers. Prioritize maximum life, level of melee skills, and spirit. At first, critical hit chance might be more useful than the crit damage bonus for more consistency with the Blood Hunt. It is also a great place for attributes when paired with catalysts. On a body armor, seek the regular maximum life, attributes, resistances, and spirit. Later on, you can switch to Crimson Power and find yourself a pure energy shield armor that would grant you tons of maximum life. A regular rare helmet provides the usual defensive modifiers. You can get a bit of a critical hit chance here to help with consistent damage output. Later it should be replaced with the Crown of Eyes. Rare gloves can give you lots of damage as well. They shall increase your critical damage bonus, raise the level of all melee skills, and improve your maximum life. On top of that, you can include flat damage for attacks or cover lacking resistances or attributes. The rare boots are always the same. Most of your movement speed can be sourced only from this item. They can also increase your stun threshold or lower the duration of ailments, but it is not as important as raising maximum life or getting resistance. The rare belt is another defensive piece. It should provide lots of life and resistances, so you can overload your other gear pieces with more useful modifiers instead. The jewels are very straightforward. You should focus only on critical strike chance or damage bonus and get a bit of ailment magnitude. It is also recommended to get recovery of at least 1% mana and life on kill. Rake is the main skill with which you'll bleed stronger enemies out. It has a guaranteed chance to inflict bleeding with a massive damage boost if you travel long distance with it. You should roll your flasks to have extra charges, so the Ambrosia and Concoction supports can grant you even more damage. It will quickly drain all your flasks' charges, but most fights should end in 1 or 2 uses of Rake at most. Blood Hunt consumes the blood loss suffered by the enemy to cause an explosion. The damage of blood loss is unscalable with regular damage modifiers, but it can critically hit. The Blood Hunt has also its own base damage, which often confuses players as to why the game recommends the regular damage supports for it, but in reality, only the critical damage is important here. The Lightning Spear is the undisputed best skill for defeating large hordes of enemies. Most enemies will die just from the initial hit, so getting a proper bleed chance for this skill is not important. You will heavily overkill most enemies, so the support gems are focused on further enhancing your area coverage. The Perpetual Charge is very useful here, as your Frenzy charge generation is rather bad. Your default attack can be quite useful, especially while your gear is still far from perfect. It can deal a bit of damage, but its main purpose is the utility of the support gems, which you will unlock for free as you level up. You can use this attack to upkeep your rage and blind enemies. The Life and Soul Thief supports can be used for better recovery in case your flask charges are depleted by the previously mentioned support gems linked to the Rake. You should implement Herald of Thunder for a much faster mapping, especially with Lightning Spear. It is an easy way to generate frenzy charges by electrocuting weaker enemies. The Lightning Infusion usually lowers your total damage of the Herald, but makes it easier to electrocute. Nevertheless, it is quite easy to electrocute normal enemies, especially once you activate the Innovate buff. With the Combat Frenzy, you will gain a frenzy charge when you electrocute an enemy. Charges are spent on Lightning Spear, meaning you won't need this skill when fighting pinnacles. You may replace it with Wind Dancer there. The Perfusion support gives you a 50% chance to generate 2 charges at once. It should be enough to use your Lightning Spear freely without worrying about charge sustain too much. Life Remnants is a persistent buff exclusive for the Blood Mage. Upon critically hitting or killing an enemy, it spawns a remnant. It will restore a portion of your life, or overflow it until you reach 200% of the maximum. The Magnetism and Dissipation make the remnants more effective. If you have spare spirit, you can add utility supports like Precision, Cannibalism, or Warm-Blooded 2. Blasphemy inflicts a socketed curse on all nearby enemies. It costs a lot of spirit, and the curse has lower effectiveness. You can also cast the curse manually if you don't have spirit on your gear, as you only really need it against bosses. Thanks to the Blood Mage Ascendancy, all your bleeds inflicted on cursed enemies are automatically aggravated. There are no offensive curses for this build, so you can only use Temporal Chains or Enfeeble. Use Infernal Cry to empower your Rake while nearby a tough enemy. It adds tons of fire damage to the next empowered attack and generates rage. For maximum boost, you should use Infernal Cry twice before using the Rake, which requires the second wind support. The extra fire damage does not affect the Bloodhunt explosion, so don't waste your empowerment on that. While the enemy is affected by the Bloodhound's mark, all the damage dealt by bleed will also contribute towards stun, which in this setup will very quickly stun even the most powerful bosses. However, this skill is currently bugged if you deal damage too fast. The Orb of Storm's role is to strike critically to create remnants and empower you with its font type support gems. The Font of Rage slowly generates rage for you, but it will very quickly dissipate if you move away from the orb. Usually you won't need to bother with it later on. The Disengage adds an extra tool to escape enemies or build up distance for extra damage for Rake. You can also use it to apply powerful shock, even if you don't have any lightning damage in your build. The shock comes from the shocking ground created by the shocking leap support. With better gear, this interaction becomes obsolete, but it can still be a useful tool to get away from danger. In the Valley of Titans questline, you will want to improve your charms. The flask modifiers are rarely useful, as you should be self-sustaining with ease. The Venom Crypts are quite straightforward too. At the normal difficulty level, you will want to improve your stun threshold, as this ailment is the most dangerous one. The same quest in the Cruel difficulty offers a decent boost to your Chaos resistance. As a Blood Mage, you can't opt for the Chaos Inoculation Keystone, so Chaos resistance is always useful to have. The final passive tree has just one goal: to get as much critical strike chance and bonus as possible. With the Tangle Tongue Spear, it is easy to land a regular critical strike, but your goal is to get the doubled critical hit instead. The critical hits will also affect the bleed damage you inflict. The consistency here is more important than potential damage, as you will usually use the Empowered Rake or Bloodhunt only once per fight. You might even want to pick up smaller nodes that simply grant you a critical strike chance for attacks. On your way through critical strike notables, you will also have quite a lot of useful notables to boost your attack damage or magnitude of inflicted ailments. A bit of accuracy or attack speed is also nice to have for better clear speed. If your primary goal is to run maps, you most definitely won't need that much damage on the passive tree. You can safely remove most non-critical, strike-related notables, and allocate the passive points toward hybrid evasion and energy shield notables. It will be especially worthwhile with the Crimson Power Ascendancy notable that encourages you to get body armor with tons of energy shield on it. We expect this build to receive similar adjustments as the Spark from the previous league, meaning it is probably the best time to try it out, which we encourage you to do as it is very fun to play. Stay tuned for more guides in the future and have a great day.